Everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CIL 650.
You're listening to Key Pacific Strata Life on CIL 650. I'm Tony Giovento, your host. Joining me in the studio is Gordon Lee from CMW Insurance. And Gordon, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you, Tony.
It's been quite a while since we've actually had you on the show, and so a good discussion about insurance, I think, is probably due for us.
Oh, for sure.
Your company provides insurance for strata corporations across the province. Can you give me a brief overview of the type of insurance and the services?
We've been providing strata insurance for strata corporations, and we specialize in that for probably about 10, 12 years now. We specialize in, and why we say that is because we're one of the biggest provider of insurance to strata corporations. We also, part of the reason that is a little different than, for a lot of people going out and say, well, I can get coverage elsewhere, and they're not really getting the same coverage, because what we do is we actually tailored the wordings for strata corporation to give them a little bit more coverage here and there where they need. For example, such as somebody has an illegal grow up in the unit and causes damage to multiple units or the whole strata. Your general policies out there, you're going to find there's no coverage, and people go to me, well, why not? And so if you flip to the exclusions in the wording, you're going to see there's a general exclusions for illegal act, and anything illegal act is not covered. And I explained to them because that policy is really designed for business owners or building owners where they bought their own building or they're running their own business. So if those people decide to have a grow up and cause damage to the building, the insurance company says, no, we're not going to provide coverage. But we understand under strata corporation, the strata can only do so much to manage that and do prevention. But if someone grows within their own unit, everybody is an innocent victim.
Right.
So really, it's not really fair to penalize these other people. So our policy is really, we remove that exclusion, understanding that stratas, there's only a limit of how far they can go to manage that. So we don't feel it's right that, other unit owners are going to be penalized.
So the specialty for strata policies with CMW Insurance is something that one of the things that you try to do with, obviously, is work closely with each one of your suppliers, work closely with your insurers, work closely with the strata corporations and the property managers, and try and find out what the special needs are for each one of the strata corporations.
Yes, that's correct. We really try to look at each strata corporation owners, their needs, and sometimes it's difficult because, of course, everybody wants everything covered, but you can't. So we try to broaden that coverage and explain to the insurance company, which generally doesn't really understand right off the bat because they insure so many different things, and try to give them that explanation and understanding of why that is a little different with strata corporation. There's little things that they have needs for that, that really they should provide coverage for versus excluding it.
Right. Right. It's daunting, though, when you're in a strata corporation, because we have so many different kinds of strata buildings and we have different kinds of relationships. And then you add the different kinds of insurance that everybody needs to look at. And it becomes very confusing for people. Absolutely.
And even for us, I could say, there's new things that come up. Like now we have section stratas that start about and even for insurance company ourselves, we deal with different lawyers to make sure, what is the proper coverage, where's there gaps in coverage, what we need to do to fill it. And then when we put that all together, we have to go explain that to the insurance company, say, hey, we need these extra coverages added in. But that's part of the job is, always be in touch with the strata corporation, working with the property managers, the unit owners, to have understanding what's going on with something that's changing all the time.
Right. So just think about the different types of strata corporations. We have just typical duplexes. We'll have mid-rise wood frame buildings. We'll have townhouse complexes. We'll have combinations of townhouses and mid-rises. Yes. We'll have high-rises and townhouses. Yes. High-rises with mixed commercial use, and that could be anything from a pub to a liquor store to retail outlets to professional offices. We have commercial parking garages. We'll have several strata corporations sharing the same property together. Maybe there's a recreational facility. We have stratas on airports and hangars. We have stratas that have marinas. We have golf courses. Yes. We have bareland stratas. Like, you start adding all these different types of stratas across the province, I kind of wonder sometimes why, or I'm not surprised why we see some errors in placing insurance, just because the industry is so complicated.
Yeah, when I started industry, over 10 years ago, it was a lot more simpler because you have more the basic stratas, but as time and I guess with the land use and developers getting more creative with working with government, it's definitely a lot more complex. People used to say, oh, it must be boring, just insuring a strata is another building, and these days I go, it's not another building. You really have to watch, and if you fall asleep, you're going to make an error, and that's not going to be beneficial for anyone. You really have to look at each strata corporation, what they comprise of and what their needs are, and because they're not all the same.
So let's we're an average owner, okay? So what are the we're in a strata building, and we have 50 units. It's a wood frame building, nothing unusual, elevator, parking garage, that's it. What are the basic policies that we need to be looking at? So we have the strata policy, and what does it cover?
So the strata policy covers basically the common asset of the strata, which really, I think to visualize it, is that when the developers completed this development, before anybody moves in, that whole building is what we're insuring. So that includes the toilet, kitchen sink, everything, minus appliances, I would say, because anything removable is not considered to be part of the building. Right. But so that's what I tell people. If you're a unit owner, what are we insured for? Well, when you first moved in, or if you imagine this building was done and you're the first guy to walk in that unit, open the keys, brand new unit, what is in there is what we're insuring. Once you bring your own items in or you start altering that unit, that's what you need to insure. That's the basics of understanding.
So and that falls into a basic principle of insurance, that you can't insure for something that you don't own or don't have an interest in. You can only insure, and so the Act itself, the Strata Property Act, creates an interest in the building for the Strata Corporation that basically says that anything built or installed by the owner developer is the responsibility of the strata to insure. And this is where we get a lot of confusion, though, in the industry, because in this vein, people think that the obligation to insure is also the obligation to repair. And so we get this confusion around, well, who's responsible to repair and maintain my strata lot? You have to replace my hot water tank if the building burns down, but what if the building doesn't burn down and my hot water tank just goes? The responsibility to maintain and repair your strata lot is still your responsibility as an owner.
Yeah, that's a very common, and it's still a common problem, that the understanding of the difference between the insurance and who's responsible to maintain. And I think it still continues to be something that's complex, because that's where, the strata, I guess they could have written that, we insure the building. Any finishes within the strata lot, it's totally, you need to insure separately. But the Strata Act wrote it as that, you need to insure the finishes inside as well. But the maintenance of it, whether that toilet breaks or hot water tank, like say Tony, or, there's a hole in the wall, you can't call the Strata Corporation and say, can I get a new wall put in and repaint it? That's your responsibility to maintain.
My carpet seams are pulling apart, or my linoleum floor is lifting, those kind of things. Those are all part of the routine maintenance and repair of the owner of the strata lot. And so, I think that's where we get a lot of confusion in the industry, that people kind of cross-pollinate who's responsible to insure and who's responsible to maintain and repair. You're listening to CIL 650's Experts on Call, and this is Key Pacific's Talk About Strata. If you have any questions for us, we'd love to hear them. You can email us at questions@strata.life. questions@strata.life. So, Gord, what about the homeowner now? What does the homeowner insure for?
Homeowner insures for the contents. So I think the basic understanding is items they move in. But, but besides that, they're also insuring for any improvements. So if they've taken out the carpet and they put in, brand new hardwood floors or engineered floors, they're responsible for that. They're also insuring for liability. If out of their units, say, the dishwasher leaks and it causes damage to other unit owners' content, belongings, they need to cover that. These policies also go beyond that and provide coverage for like additional living expense, a nice flooring that needs to replace now. You need to move out. You can't really stay in there. Your content to be put in storage while, your unit's being repaired.
It's a bit of a sign, though, for a buyer who comes along. When buyers are involved with respects to buying a condo, one of the things they need to be asking is, are there any betterments? Things I need to insure for.
Yes.
Just because you move into a condo and it has hardwood floors doesn't mean the owner developer installed those hardwood floors. You bought a unit that the hardwood floors may in fact be betterments. You now are responsible for those betterments as a new buyer.
Yeah, that's a really good thing that it's nice they brought up, because lately I've been getting a lot of calls, and it's because we got claims coming in and people are saying, well, the property manager tells me that I'm responsible to repair this, and I'm saying, well, I bought it, I think it's original to the strata, and there's a little bit of an argument over that, right? And of course they call and they ask, well, what is it? And unfortunately we don't keep track, and there's not a responsibility, unfortunately, what is original. But I think that's a big misunderstanding out there, that when they buy the unit from someone else, what's in there is considered original. And I said, well, not necessarily. It's what's original from the developer. And you have to read the Strata Act.
But this has got to be really hard. This has got to be a really difficult situation in new developments, where one of the benefits of buying in a new development is that the developer will offer you as an incentive to close the deal this week, hardwood flooring in the unit. And maybe only 50% of the units in the development have hardwood floors, right? You don't have. How do you track that? How do you account for that? That must be a real challenge as an insurer. You look at an appraisal and you don't know if the appraisal has assessed that. You don't know how that's dealt with. That must be a complicated issue to deal with.
It is. For adjusters, I think what they do is that they go back to the property manager and then try to see if the property manager has documentation of are these basic improvements that the developer would have put in. But what's getting real difficult, Tony, as you're getting the aging stratas that are like 20, 25 years old now, and you go, was that original?
Right.
It could be the fifth property manager that's looked after the building, and they go, I really don't know.
Is it easier maybe to just fit a base cost? This is the standard that every suite's going to have. This is the compensation, whatever the damage is. That's really not the issue.
I think most adjusters will try to get that information, and if it's reasonable, we'll try to provide some coverage for the unit owner.
Right.
But we always tell them, unit owners should really get their own insurance, because that improvement would be covered, and then you could let the insurance company deal with it. The problem we have is, poor unit owners are now victims of a loss, and everyone's saying, I don't think it's us.
So the Act says that the strata must maintain for a replacement value of all of the original assets and fixtures. What does replacement value mean?
Cost to replace brand new without depreciation.
So today.
Yes.
Right. So so that can have a huge impact on buildings then. Depending on the age of buildings, you talk about aging buildings, that may have building code impacts on buildings as well.
Yes, for sure. We're seeing that, being in the business for a while, I've seen also, building owners, strata aside, that appraisals are really important. And I'm glad that the strata, mandates that, you have to insure for full replacement, which means getting an appraisal. As these buildings get older, codes change drastically, and there's significant costs, because I've had clients come in and says, oh, my home, I could replace it for, $200 a square feet is more than enough. And you kind of go, based on the experience we have looking at appraisals, you might need a lot more things done to your home. You don't have sprinklers now, you're going to need those. Your foundations probably going to have to be redone. There's so many updated codes today that weren't in place like 30, 40, 50 years ago, even 10, 15 years ago.
Right. So it's a significant change to really to what the building's going to look like after the damage is done. Yeah. And I guess a lot of that has to do with the extent of the damage too, as to whether it's going to trigger the code upgrade.
That's right. The government will come in and look at their bylaws and have an inspector assess how much damage and will it need that upgrade. And sometimes that's where we see claims. Sometimes, people go, well, it doesn't seem like that's too bad of a claim. There's only so much damage. But we've had cases where we end up paying a lot of money, or our insurance company do this. The government says you have to upgrade to fully to code now, and we got to pay it. That's part of the deal.
Well, so it'd be pretty easy industry to get quite a bit of confusion, I suspect.
Very complex at times.
You're listening to Key Pacific Strata Life, and we'll be right back after these messages.
There's still more ahead with Experts on Call on CL 650.